Let's check in with Turning Point's White House correspondent, Monica Paige. Monica, not necessarily White House specific today, but again, isn't it all White House specific? The shutdown, which of course, people at home don't know this, but 12:01 October 1st hit, and Monica and I were on the phone in tears, crying, holding our respective spouses, just wondering how we're going to get through just the awfulness and the tragedy of a federal government shutdown. Monica, have you stopped crying since?
No, I mean, this is the only time that I'm taking my break. I mean, usually it hits harder at night, so I keep a box of tissues near my bed because it's just the tragedy is just so it's hitting me unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Yeah, it's been awful, and I don't know if we can make it through this entire shutdown. Nobody I've known has noticed that it's shut down, but those people are just out of touch with reality. Monica, on a more serious note, libs are super, I guess, intended to put illegals on the healthcare system. Now, that's the case from all the conservatives. Like, yeah, you guys are trying to get libs on healthcare. Libs are saying, no, we're not doing that. Can you kind of, I don't know, shed some light onto what the argument kind of is right now of that, but also, what the White House is doing in response to the libs shutting the government down?
Yeah, Jobob, you mentioned being out of touch with reality. I mean, speaking of that, you've got these Democrats who are trying to give healthcare benefits to illegal aliens despite them saying that's not true. But here's why their lies are just blatantly untrue. I mean, there were two Biden era programs, okay? They explicitly gave the taxpayer healthcare money to these illegal aliens that was turned off when President Trump took office. So the first Biden era program was giving illegal aliens emergency healthcare at the hospitals. Americans obviously want to benefit from these hospital services to not be taxed and then have those services go to people who aren't citizens of our country. And then the second Biden era program gave this mass parole to those millions of illegals who came into our country under Joe Biden and simultaneously made those people eligible for taxpayer funded health care. Illegal aliens, they got to go to the ER for routine health care because the taxpayer picks up the tab. In 2024 alone, I was doing some research into this. Medicaid paid over $76 million to emergency rooms in Florida alone for illegal aliens.
Whoa.
And yeah, and that's just in Florida. And healthcare for illegal aliens in total, the cost of that cost the Florida taxpayer nearly $660 million. That's million dollars. They essentially made emergency rooms across the entire country completely unusable. I mean, look at LA, look at these deep blue cities, look at New York City as well. So the passing of this one big beautiful bill kind of tried to turn off the faucet here, but clearly we're seeing some backlash with these Democrats who say that, this is essential for all people. But you got to prioritize the American people. And that's what this White House is doing. And I want to mention the White House has been very, very stiff with its messaging. Thank goodness they're not,
Hmm.
being malleable or squishy or kind of playing both sides. They mean business, and they're saying no, American healthcare goes to Americans. It's not all people. It's not, someone who just crosses the border and says, "Oh, please help me, I just broke my leg." That's not how this works. It's America. Healthcare goes to Americans. We're not paying for this.
Totally. And I think that's the big kind of misunderstanding. The problem with, but also just the challenge of being a conservative is it takes nuance, right? It's really easy to say, we believe in love and peace and healthcare for everyone. But what does that look like in practice? Okay, yeah, I guess technically speaking, the whole elite, like it doesn't explicitly say illegals are getting free healthcare, but no, they're giving a ton of money to emergency rooms, and they're by law, a bunch of people who show up to the emergency room must be treated. It's like, okay, well, in effect, then you're basically paying for illegals to have healthcare, unless you outlaw it specifically, which is what libs are trying to obfuscate in order to get their point across of like, oh, no, that's not in the bill. Yeah, well, okay, it totally is. Monica, I want to play you a quick clip of Jake Tapper, interestingly enough, on CNN, calling Hakeem Jeffries, or I'm sorry, Senor Hakeem, out on why are the libs even putting this in the bill? It's rather long, but I'd like to get your response to it afterward. Check this out, clip one.
So let me ask you about a provision that the Republicans are talking about quite a bit. I know you want to talk about, and Democrats want to talk about, extending the Obamacare subsidies, which expire at the end of 2025. But they talk about the provisions, and it's right here. Subtitle E, and this has to do with the repeal of healthcare subtitle changes, and specifically what it is. How they characterize it is you want to give health insurance to undocumented immigrants. I understand that's not really an accurate depiction, but what it does do is...
It's a lie.
It's a lie, but what you support does bring back funding for emergency Medicaid to hospitals, some of which does pay for undocumented immigrants and people who don't have health insurance. And also there is this provision, and it's not about undocumented immigrants, it's about people with asylum seekers and people with temporary protected status, et cetera, but about their ability to get Medicaid. So they're non-citizens, they're not undocumented, they're not illegal. Why even include that in a bill, knowing that they're going to seize right upon that and use that as a message? I understand that when you retake the House, you can get whatever you want passed, but at this point...
Well, what we're doing...
Monica, just really quick before we continue playing the rest of it, do you think Senor Hakeem will answer the question here?
I say no.
Let's continue on. A couple more seconds of this and we'll get your full reaction.
One is fighting to protect the health care of the American people against the largest cut to Medicaid ever. 14 million American citizens are going to lose their health care as a result of what Republicans did.
You're talking about the subsidies again, but I'm talking about the non-citizens.
No, I'm talking about the Medicaid cuts. That document that you just showed me, that was the one big ugly bill. 14 million Americans.
That's enough. We don't need to see the rest of that. Monica, I guess I don't quite understand who they think they're trying to fool. The American people might not necessarily be paying attention as close as they should be, but they're also not stupid. And I guess the way that libs are treating the American people right now is like, hey, these people are too dumb to notice this clear and obvious thing that we're trying to do. Your reaction?
Yeah, what's sick about this clip is that it's not just Hakeem or Jose Jeffries, saying, completely fear-mongering the American people. But you've also got these media outlets. You've got MSNBC, you've got CNN, completely fear-mongering everybody. And this is exactly what we saw when President Trump was trying to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill. Oh, they're going to cut the Medicaid, they're going to cut Medicare for everybody. All Americans, you should watch out because they're coming for you next. That was never the point. The point was getting illegal aliens who are abusing the system and allowing states like, California to stop using these loopholes to fund these programs for illegals. And at the White House, I know the president met with, a couple of Democrats here, but, the Democrats gave the White House a memo showing them, hey, we want nearly $200 billion spent on healthcare for illegals over the next decade. And the White House is saying, no, enough of this. Every Democrat presidential candidate, I'm sure you've seen the clip too, raised their hand in 2020 in favor of healthcare coverage for illegal aliens. They're just saying the quiet part out loud at this point. These people, I don't know why they're so illegal first and Americans last, but I'm glad that you said it, Jobob. Americans aren't stupid anymore. We see right through this. And I'm grateful for this administration for being honest with us and being as transparent as it is to tell the people what's really happening. So they're not being blindsided anymore.
Well, and two, I think people recognize the difference between spin, which of course happens all across the political spectrum, and just flat out bold-faced lying to people. This is clearly a definitive, I guess there is a spin element to it because you do have to have a little bit of nuance, and making it more blunt is easier to get the point across. But on the other side, you've got the libs just flat out lying. Like, no, it's not. Like, okay, but it is. So I don't know what you're trying to do here. So
every time they lie about this, Jobob, the sombrero gets 10 times bigger.
That's a good one. You should pass that along to the Trump administration. Continue the Senor Hakeem memes, but just make the sombrero just a little bit bigger every single time. That's hilarious. Monica Paige, Turning Point's White House correspondent. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, guys.